very interesting time for AC Milan and an absolutely perfect time to talk to a big time AC Milan supporter, Franco from AC Milan, New York, here on the Calcio Guys. So far, it's myself, Nicholas, and Ejano. Jenny will join us later. But Franco, how's it going?
Guys, good to be here. Like I said, long overdue. So thanks for having me. Everything's good.
Yeah, and it feels like we're completing almost the North American, let's say, royalty of Milan clubs. We start our first show. We had Marcello on, and this is episode 215, and we have you on. So we've come full circle. But before we get started, I want to ask you, what's your passion with Milan? What's your story? What's your story with Milan Club New York? Just let it all out.
Yeah. So I'm 41 years old. I'll be 42 at the end of the year. Been a Milan fan my entire life. Thanks to my dad. And by the time I was 5, 6, 7 years old, it was an easy time to be a Milanista. It was like Sacchietta stuff and all that. And through my childhood, Capello era, and then like young adulthood, Ancelotti era. So it was very easy. Early days of Milan fandom in my life, but stuck through it in the dark years and joined what was then known as Milan Club of New Jersey in 2010, and that was the original incarnation of Milan Club New York. So, long story short, in 2012 we broke away from that club with some of the other founders, and we became officially Milan Club of New York City, and the rest is history. Here we are, so many years later, so many ups and downs later, but proud, very, very proud of the people that surround our club and make it what it is today. So it's just it's been a really, really fun ride, and hopefully people at some point are able to come through and come visit us.
No, absolutely. And just as a Milan fan here, I mean, Milan Club New York City has been kind of that reference point for Milan clubs, in this in North America, especially in the East Coast. Obviously, I'm a proud Milan Club Montreal member, but the way you guys show out and show up, it's amazing every week. And yeah, it's been an honor and a pleasure to have met you. Many years ago now. What was it? 4 years ago now.
Yeah, more.
2019, 4 or 5 years ago.
5.
Yeah. And being able to keep in contact and it's obviously a pleasure to have you on tonight, Franco. But I guess, like you said, you kind of grew up in the great years of Milan. I'm a bit younger than you. We're both actually a bit younger than yourself. And so I kind of saw maybe the later years of Milan. But maybe if you can share with us maybe your favorite Milan moment as a fan, and then on the flip side of that, now all these years later, being with that committee of Milan Club New York City members, maybe your favorite memory about being part of the great club in your backyard.
Yeah, so man, it's like when you pick out Milan moments of my lifetime, there's like so many to choose from, right? Like you have so many Champions League victories, Intercontinental, World Club Cup, and all that kind of stuff.
Scudetti.
Out of respect for Nick, I'll go easy on the 2003 stuff and all that kind of stuff. Like actually, for me personally, there's a very personal Milan memory, and in 2004, I got to see the Derby with my father. So it was the only time I got to go to San Siro with my dad.
Nice.
It's been 10 years since he passed. So in 2004, we went to the game. At halftime, they were losing 2-0. And I'm sitting there in a very cold February San Siro at halftime saying, I came all the way here to see this. And all I could think about was, cousins and friends who were just waiting for me back home, just licking their chops. And then Milan made one of the best comebacks in Derby history and won that game 3-2 with a goal from Seedorf that won the game. And just to share that with my dad is easily my favorite Milan memory. And without him here, it's going to be very, very hard to beat that memory on a personal level. So for me, that's that's like that's definitely number one for me. From a club standpoint, I would say there's two. Obviously, the day that Milan won the Scudetto was a very memorable day for everybody involved, just for the amount of work that we've put in over the years and stuff, and just to have almost 600 people in our bar that day. It was unforgettable. And then having Franco as a guest in our home bar, and being able to do an event and a charity fundraiser for Fondazione Milan. Those are definitely two of the top highlights from a club standpoint. So
beautiful. Johnny has arrived, guys. Johnny has entered the chat. Johnny, how are you?
Not bad. Sorry I'm late, boys. Had an unfortunate loss in Calcio tonight, 6-5. One of the games I want to forget, man. One of those games I want to forget.
It's okay. You're used to it as a Roma Napoli fan.
Wow.
barring today, 6-1.
Yeah. But Franco,
cool.
heard those were very nice stories, by the way. From I was listening while I was waiting to get introduced.
Thank you. Thanks. And
beautiful stories.
Good to see you. Obviously, I like your shirt too.
Thank you. I love it too.
Good dudes.
From our boys at Pizza
They
Calcio.
Pizza Calcio. Yep. Good guys.
Yeah, good dudes for sure.
Maybe I guess changing gears. I know, we can talk Milan all day, Franco. I know you and I, but I guess we'll kind of get into it in terms of Milan of today and what's going on with the club now. Last game, Milan Atalanta 1-1. My personal opinion should have been more. I think the 3 points were in our hands, and we kind of gave it to Atalanta. Didn't do enough in that second half to maybe claim those 3 points and really deserve those 3 points. But incredible start. Obviously, Leao, not the goal scoring season that we've known of him as of late. Obviously, I think now it's 4 goals in the season with his goal in that game. Incredible goal. Just one of those goals that, all the haters of Leao, kind of, shut up a bit and kind of just enjoy and see what he can really bring to this club. Just, I guess, your thoughts overall on the game, and just what you thought of, the performance, maybe the lack of fight, maybe near the end, and what this says about this Milan right now.
I got to tell you, normally I'm the type of guy to be like, you really should be able to put a game away in spite of officiating decisions. It's a terrible call, but you weren't able to put the game away. Normally, I'm really that type of guy. If you're good enough to win, you should be able to win in spite of officiating. But not this time. I really think the referee ruined the game. And okay. I know that sounds like a really fan thing to say, and if for people that know me, that they would know that that's probably not something that I would normally say. The timing of the call, the lack of review, the questionable review, and everything that went on in that call was just atrocious, and it sent the game in just a different direction. And in the end, it's a shame because tactically, it was probably one of Milan's best games of the season, and I know I'm not the only one who said that. Aside from some early flurries, they really held Atalanta to almost nothing, and for them to only come out with a point is frustrating and kind of deflating. So I'm hoping that they respond in the right manner on Friday. But yeah, like just going back to Leao and stuff, I love goals like that when he just has to remind people of who he is. I think he needed it to remind himself of who he is. I think he's a young player that needs to remind himself of his own true abilities. And I think, sometimes the criticisms are just and correct. If you want to be at that level and you want to put yourself in that, almost Ballon d'Or-ish conversation. I'm not saying that he is at that level yet, but if he's somebody who claims to aspire to be amongst that company, then he needs to be able to learn how to handle some of that pressure and some of that criticism. And unfortunately, I don't think he's done a great job of it this year. But I do think he has done a better job of rounding out his game. I think too many people are concentrating on the amount of goals that he has or has not scored. But I think he's actually rounded out other parts of his game in a positive way. So I'm not too concerned about the amount of goals that he has or has not scored in Serie A this season. I think Milan has much bigger problems than Leao's performances. And honestly, if you take him out of the lineup for 60, 70% of the games this season, I think they find themselves much lower in the standings than they are right now.
No, very fair.
How about, I mean, looking at the recent results, even besides this one, in terms of Serie A, they haven't won since February 3rd. That was the game. I'm drawing a blank now because they lost. Was it Genoa? I have to pull up the schedule. Sorry, Frosinone. They beat on February 3rd. They won against Napoli. Sorry, guys. February 11th. I got my dates mixed up. They lost to Monza and then tied this game against Atalanta. But even going back, they tied Bologna back at the end of January. So, it's not the best stretch of games just in terms of Serie A. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I mean, they just squeaked by against Udinese too. Remember, they made that late comeback, and the Monza game, I think, is the one that's most frustrating. I
my
think,
God, big time.
Napoli was a nice win. They if we're just talking Serie A, Frosinone, they just squeaked by. Bologna, if you tie 2-2 against Bologna, that's fine as long as you take care of business against other opponents. I mean, Bologna's having a good season. 2-2 is what it is. The only thing was that I believe they coughed up that game, if I'm not mistaken. I think they tied that game in the 92nd minute. I think it's just there's a consistent inconsistency with this team, and a lot of it has to do with giving up goals. We've seen a lot of goals given up to inferior opponents in this last stretch here that you're mentioning. I think people concentrating on Leao, people concentrating on Pioli, and stuff like that. I think the defense is really the killer this season. The defense has blown games here and there. Magnan deserves at least a little bit of criticism. Of course, they're missing their normal defense for a good chunk of these games, and of course, so you have to look at that. But at the beginning of the season, we thought that the depth was actually kind of good, whereas it hasn't been able to sustain that type of effectiveness. And I think we've seen it in the second half of the season. It's been extremely frustrating as a fan. I feel like everybody always looks for a scapegoat, but I think there's just so much to pinpoint. Like you can't just pinpoint one thing. I think there's so much that you can nitpick at, where it's like a little bit of everything. So I think criticisms of just one player or one person or a coach or whatever is kind of unjust. This stretch really shows that. I mean, even the second game against Rennes was just uninspiring.
Yeah, that game too was a bit. The penalties coming left and right. I mean, it was just like it was like a wild game, like shenanigan type of game, in my personal opinion. But
which is strange, because in Europe you usually see better penalty calls. You don't see those chintzy calls that we see in Serie A, and they want to whistle everything and go to VAR and everything. I feel like in Champions League they do a better job of that. Absolutely. Maybe in Europa League they don't. I don't know. I guess we need to see more Europa League, and hopefully we do. But hopefully Milan take advantage of a struggling, really super struggling Lazio side, and they don't play down to an opponent that they think is struggling this Friday.
Yeah, no, but just even to bounce off of that, Franco. I mean, the 2024. I mean, albeit like these last couple of results, draw, loss, whatever, Monza. I mean, we've had a pretty good 2024, to say the least. I mean, obviously, like you said, the Monza loss was a killer because, again, right there we could have leapfrogged Juve. They had lost that match day too. if I'm not mistaken, or they dropped points. Could have leapfrogged them, didn't. And again, it's these individual moments in the season that I think, ultimately will bite us in the ass in terms of what we could have done more. Come the end of the season. Obviously, first place currently after seeing today's performance with Inter. I mean, 12 points above. This was the makeup game. They've just. I mean, we said it on the show. I mean, it's no real secret. It hurts us as fans of opposition teams to say it, but obviously they've been the best team in the league, and they're there for I guess a reason. So, but yeah, I mean, I think these individual moments for Milan will definitely be something to look back on and be like, shit, there was this moment, there was that moment, there was these points that we should have picked up. But I think as long as we stick on where we're at in terms of 2-3, this top 4 seems to obviously be the only real priority. And then obviously maybe going further in Europa League is kind of the only saving graces of this season.
I think
Johnny, I don't know if you. Sorry, go on.
No, go ahead.
No, I don't know if Johnny had a question.
Well, mine wasn't really. I had a question, but it wasn't really related to champions, but or any of the international competitions for that matter. But I guess since we're on the topic, okay, like once I had a discussion with the guys from Serie A sit down when I had to co-host with Richard, we talked about like how Ren would have been probably that like reset game, for Milan, just to kind of like get them back into the rhythm of things, maybe find their ground a bit, which, the second game, left more to be desired. But
Yeah.
Do you think that this is just maybe just a slippery step? Do you think this is just, like old nightmares coming back? I think because I think that was probably like, in my personal opinion, a good confident win for them. Like, even though it wasn't a good result, but like kind of rebuilt that motivation or like that a little bit of fire in them. Yeah, recent results have been a bit off, but I don't think it, in your opinion, because I don't think it's going to continue. But what do you believe?
I believe that Milan plays down to opponents. Because in every big game that they've had this year, with the exception of the Derby, they've at least played well. Whether or not they came out with the result, in every big game that they played in this year, they came out with a good performance. And then in games that they should not have taken lightly, they played down to their opponent. They had a subpar performance, whether it's the second leg against Rennes, whether it's the home game against Borussia Dortmund. Stuff like that just comes back. And then, all the Serie A ones, the Salernitana game, the Lecce game, the first Udinese game, Monza. So I would like to think that this team is good enough and deep enough to, fix some of those issues and at least get up for some of the upcoming games. Like, we were actually joking around in our Milan club group chat that Leverkusen or Liverpool might have been better because now they got the quote unquote easier opponent in Europa League, and maybe that's not the best thing for us because we always play better against a bigger opponent. But I think that there's enough time left in the season. I think accepting the fact that the Scudetto is more than gone at this point might actually help them, especially with their position in the league, as long as they can continue to gather points here and there if they win on Friday and all that kind of stuff. I think that's going to be helpful because, you're a professional team. Inter had a great season. Honestly, from a fan standpoint, if it wasn't Inter's 20th Scudetto, I think that it wouldn't be as big of a deal. With all due respect to Inter and all that kind of stuff, they're a machine. And, whether people want to admit it or not, like you said, and all the people on the screen who are, do not support that team, they did everything right this year. And we have to just kind of sit here and take it. And like I said, if you finish second or third, I mean, you still reached a point where you got yourself in the Champions League the following season. As a Milan fan, it burns more that it's the second star for them and they got it before us, and that's gonna gonna burn, and they're gonna remind us of it all summer, and just like we did to them a couple of years ago, and we have it coming. It sucks, but as far as the rest of the season goes, you're a professional soccer player. You are on a very good team. You yourself, especially if you're one of Milan's starters, you're a very good player, and you need to, point to the best results possible for the rest of the season, and that is finish as high as you can in the league table and get as far as you can in Europa League, if not win it. So, I forget who it was. One of you a couple weeks ago was saying how, it's tiring. It's tiring. You play Thursday, you play Sunday, you play Thursday, you play Sunday, you play Thursday, you play Sunday. It's a gauntlet. It's a really hard tournament to win, because then the other teams come down with you from Champions League. You had the other teams that were in there this year to start that are also extremely good teams, and it's a hard schedule to navigate. Like I'm actually shocked that Milan didn't get more Monday games from this point. Yeah. I was convinced the second that they finished third in that group, I'm like, oh, it stinks, because from a club standpoint, from a fan club standpoint, you're like, oh, Mondays suck. Nobody's going to come to those games and all that kind of stuff. And so far, we haven't had any. So obviously, it remains to be seen. And then they scheduled 3 more games. They came out with the times, and it's 2 Sunday games and a Saturday game. So no Monday games just yet. So playing Thursday, Sunday is hard.